know who I am, but I still feel it a necessity from time to time to reintroduce the fact that there are many strange things about me. One of them being I'm married with 5 children now, 5, count them 5, which means after this Mass I'm going to go home and sit down. I tell that for the visitors amongst us. They've got a lacrosse team, I think, from New Orleans, and I just want them to go home and tell Mama there's a strange priest. The emails I get, this is why I do this. But I give you that Surgeon General's warning to talk about what I really want to talk about, and that is the reminder you're given as a parent when each new child comes around. Our little one's about 5 months old now, and you'll remember, some of you'll remember that thing, that look that your child gives you, you know. A newborn babe's eyes are wide and they're focused, and when they catch on you, that you feel it, you know. There's something about that, the alertness, the awareness of a child, and you're reminded of that connection, that bond, which you feel obviously most intensely for your child, you know, that bond between mother and child, father and child, which is, and again, I'm speaking, I guess sentimentally, but which is, you know, you feel it, it's everything. This bond, this connection of love, which you have, particularly for this little baby who's staring at you, and after a while begins to smile in between puking. You know what I'm saying? It's that connection. It's written into things. It's written into everything. Again, as you know, some of you know our story. We were on the wait list to adopt a child for a long, long time, until our first came along, and we've just not stopped. Again, some of you know what I'm talking about. But we had to go through all these classes, you know, which are good things to do, actually. The adoption process is so beautiful and so necessary and so powerful, and it was had a profound effect on our lives. We went through Gladney over in Fort Worth, which is wonderful, and we had to go through all these classes, and I remember the one thing I remember is this woman telling us that when a newborn comes into the world, they can only see about yay far, you know. Which is the distance between a mother's elbow and her face, right? That's all a newborn baby can see. That's as far as they can see, because that's as far as they need to see. That's as far as they need to see the face of the mother. And this staring contest, right? This gaze between parent and child. Neuroscientists have talked about it, philosophers have talked about it, theologians have talked about it. You, if you've ever held one, feel it. Feel it, this connection, this bond, those eyes, you know. And I say, I call it a reminder because it is a reminder of what's true, not just for one's kids. Sometimes you get, you know, in the busyness of things, and they start talking back, and you start yelling at them, and you can kind of get confused, you know, about their beauty. That's, by the way, that's why God makes children so beautiful, is because you'd kill them otherwise. They're laughing so hard because you know. But that connection, that bond of love, between parent and child, mother and child, father and child, it's true of every human relationship. It's true of every human relationship. It's true between spouses, between husband and wife, You don't feel it all the time because that would be weird, but some Saturday night, half a bottle in, It's true between friends. What we really mean by friends, not just friends, but like full Aristotelian friends, That bond is the same, it's there. We're connected, you see, by love. We're wired, we're built, we're created for that connection, for that love. The child, the little 5-month-old, her entire universe was the womb, and now it's her mother's face. And when she gets up and grows, because hopefully we've done our job well, she'll be able to recognize love in other faces as she grows up. And it's just one of those mysteries we need to remember. We need to recall, we need to know is real. As a side note, I think one of the reasons bitterness and loneliness seem to be so du jour today, this is just Josh's theory, is because we've replaced faces with screens. We look at screens more than we do faces now, and so we can't help but be lonely, we can't help but be bitter, we can't help but be angry, Because we're not wired to look at screens. We're wired to look at faces. But of course, this connection, this bond, it's a roller coaster. These relationships, they can go really well, they can go really poorly. The parent-child relationship, we shouldn't sort of sentimentally idolize it, because sometimes it can go horribly wrong. Sometimes I can sin as a father, the child can sin, There are such things as bad parents, right? You've probably been a bad parent, I've been a bad parent, a good one on Tuesday, bad one on Thursday. And when we mess that relationship up, what happens? The child becomes spoiled. The child becomes wounded and walks the rest of his or her life wounded. Our dear psychoanalysts, they're onto something. The same's true in relationship with your spouse. It's possible that you can mess that up. Friendships can be ruined. God's given us this great gift. As I said, it's created, it's wired within us. But that doesn't mean it can't all end in tragedy. Which, if you're wondering what I'm preaching about this one line. The first thing I'm preaching about is this one line from Paul. We're created to love. Mother sees child, that's love. Husband sees wife, that's love. Friend loves friend, that's love. We're created to love. But what Paul said, very interestingly, he said, love rejoices in truth. Love rejoices in truth. That's how we can mess it up. When truth is taken away. when we're not truthful to our spouse, when we're not truthful to our friend, when we don't raise up our children in truth, but rather we just sort of equip them. Sometimes we can fool ourselves into thinking that parenting is about equipping our children to play the game of the lie, which is the quickest way, by the way, to kill your child's soul. Mark my words. Love rejoices in truth. And so what's the virtue that's asked of us? The virtue that's asked of us is to avoid sentimentality. Now, sentimentality, what I mean by that is the appearance of love, the words of love, the smiles of love, but without truth. That's what sentimentality is. And it's deadly. Love rejoices in truth. Any good relationship, any genuine relationship, any relationship that will get swept up and swallowed by love which is eternal, rejoices in truth. And if this is true between us, between me and my kids, me and my wife, me and you, it's also true in our relationship with God, right? God became flesh, dwelt among us, Jesus of Nazareth. He did that so he could enter into a friendship with us, a love with us. And so love with God must rejoice in truth too. Which means that, sometimes for the people you love, you got to tell them what's up. You got to have that tough love, those hard words for your kid from time to time. There's a good chance you mess it up, say the wrong thing, go a little overboard. That's true, but you got to. Sometimes you got to tell your husband what's up. Quit that drinking. You gotta. You gotta tell your friend, quit doing that. Love rejoices in truth. But sometimes we don't like that. When Jesus, came and preached what he preached, we heard it last week, didn't he? He proclaimed the Jubilee, and everybody was amazed. But instantly, they start saying, isn't that Joseph's kid? Don't we know this guy? Their thinking immediately reverts to the world, right? And they begin to categorize him into submission. And Jesus fires back. He says, look, anybody who has faith, basically, even if they're pagans, even if they're Gentiles, they're welcome into this kingdom, into this Jubilee. And that's what made them mad. That's what filled them, as Luke says, with fury. And they tried to throw him off a cliff. I always wondered what that was like, the father goes home at the end of the day, and his son says, well, how was church today? He said, well, it was pretty good, but then we decided to throw the preacher off a cliff. Can you let your spouse tell you the truth? Can you let your friend tell you the truth? Can you let Jesus tell you the truth? Can you let the church tell you the truth? Can you let your preacher tell you the truth? Do you want that? Sometimes I don't want that. But I need that. Haunting line from Paul to the Galatians, he said, do you hate me now because I've told you the truth? And so I think that's the task for me, for you, in this bitter and twisted world. Can we listen and hear without flying off the handle and completely ignoring the other. On a side note for that, I find it extremely easy and actually quite pleasurable to hate people in the abstract. It makes perfect sense to hate certain people in the abstract because they're irritating. But every single time I've actually removed myself from people in the abstract and started talking to John or Tom or Susan or Bill, where they're from, what their parents did, what they do. How are you? What's your name? When I started talking to people like that, which is actually the normal way, it's very hard to hate them. It's very hard to hate them. So to be open to the other person. And then, when the hard truth comes to us, what are we like? Do we try and throw it off a cliff? Or do we try and hear it? That's the challenge. We've been celebrating this birth of Christ, this coming of Christ, this baptism of Christ. And here he starts getting down to the nitty-gritty. Starts telling you and I, okay, here's the thing. Here's the truth. Are we going to be filled with fury or filled with grace? That's the question. Please stand.